So thank you, and I thank you for being here. It is a sign of your faith. And with that, I give you Mr. Peter Borre.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank our host, Father John, and the Episcopalian community. I want to thank Pat for his superb organizing skills. A good friend of mine in Rome describes many of the doctrinal issues that split the Roman Catholic Church into several pieces as the so-called pelvic issues, those that arise from the human sexual impulse, whether it's abortion, contraception, gays, married priests, women priests. I'm just a simple country boy from Boston. I will not get into any of those issues because I start with one fundamental viewpoint. If our bishops and cardinals continue the scale of destruction of parishes and churches, there's not going to be anything to fight about. So I'll leave those big picture, and they are very important issues. I don't mean to trivialize them. But I'm all about trying to protect the precious Catholic infrastructure that has been built up over about 220 years. And the three specific topics for tonight, and I'm really going to compress them, because each of them could be briefed for 3 hours, Lord help us. But to convey in 5 minutes what each of these is about is a challenge. And in the words of Lenin, everything is connected. And the three connected issues are, first of all, the canon appeal process in the Roman Catholic Church, because at least for the red shirts, and for those from St. Donato, they're in the middle of this. So I think it's important to have a bit of a roadmap, but just the facts, just the process. From that, because now these appeals are in Rome, a little bit about what's transpiring. And I go there every 2 months. I was there a couple of weeks ago. And all I can say is that the Catholic Church is living through an extraordinary moment. Really unusual. But it makes it difficult to figure out which way it's going to go. The risk of going towards the self-imposed limit here, if we were precisely 1 year ago under the reign of Benedict, I would be pretty downbeat about the prospects. We've had some victories in the appeal process, but not too many. This is a moment of cautious optimism, but I emphasize both words, and I'll try to explain that. From Rome, I'd like to circle back to Philadelphia, because the bigger picture of what's happening in this archdiocese is relevant to what's happening to Parisian groups and to the Catholic presence in Frankfurt. And if the sign of a truly weak mind is thinking by analogy, and I'm guilty of that, there are some extraordinary parallels between what's happened in the Archdiocese of Boston since 2002, when the clergy sex abuse crisis blew up there, and what you've been experiencing here in Philadelphia when it detonated here. In Boston, it was a very discreet event. Appropriately, the Epiphany, January 6, 2002, front page of the Globe, clergy sex abuse in Boston. Who knew? I will tell you that on January 5th, the day before, if you had done a survey and you'd gone through the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, all is well in Catholic America. In the last decade or so, there are real signs of accelerating and irreversible decline. And this, from one of the core pillars that supports a church with with a 2,000-year-old history. This is not a small event, but it's happening. Now, the canon appeal process. You have suffered through this, so I'll be quick. Basically, it's a three-step process. And I'm really just going to hit the high points because in the case of San Donato, I deal with the Hamels, and here with Pat, and they get tormented by the detail. But once in a while, you need a landmark in a way of kind of orienting yourself. It is a three-step process. In the event that your parish is to be restructured, and let's not get into the fine print of whether it's a merger or something else, or your church is to be deconsecrated. The wonderful archaic phrase is reduced to profane but not sordid use. You do have an avenue of appeal that is defined under canon law. Now that's not just playing smarty pants here. There are pastors from Catholic pulpits who are basically saying, if you challenge your bishop in the decree that he has just issued, you're bad human beings, you're disobedient Catholics, heaven knows what's going to happen to you. To keep it PG rated, that is absolute hogwash. Because I would then ask, what in the name of blankety blank then is the purpose of the Code of Canon Law promulgated in 1983 in all of its glorious 1,754 canons that lays out these appeal procedures? That's almost saying to a bank robber, come and rob the bank. These are your very meager rights as Catholics. So first, you go back to your bishop, archbishop, or cardinal, and you basically say, please change your mind. It ain't going to happen. But, back to the baseball metaphor, if you're trying to round the bases and come home, but you fail to touch first base, as you're headed towards second, you are an illicit runner. You have put yourself outside the process. So you do go back to your bishop, and just one trick of the trade. Step one, get back to your bishop within 10 days. Pax vobiscum. Somehow, if you get through that step, then your next two appellate level of appeal steps are first of all to a department of the Vatican government, known in Vatican speak as a congregation, but it's a department, and where you challenge the bishop's decree, because he said, my decree stands, and that's where you are now. And if after a year of rumbling around, you get an adverse ruling from the congregation for the clergy, then you have the right to go to the final level, which is the Vatican Supreme Court, known as the Apostolic Signatura. So these are the three ranks.